All right, Tomboy Official, what is up? I have not posted on here for most of the month, um, but it's still Stud Mask Appreciation Month. I don't have too much to say. Like, there's just not too much that I have to say about this month. Um, I guess one thing I've noticed is maybe with some of the people that I follow online, some of the content creators, the LA ones, uh, like Jay Killam and Alexa Legend and Lexi Peters. I think the three of them and more. I think Kells, um, the four of them, they are, they do a lot of dancing, and that's pretty cool. Like, it seems like they kind of book and go to events or attend events. Um, and I know Jay Killam is, uh, responsible or part of a team that's responsible for having a lot of events like taste events and other types of LGBT events that are usually geared towards women and AFAB people. Um, and so that's pretty cool. But um, yeah, it's kind of hard for me to really record on here when I'm not going out as much as I was. Uh, I did go to CrossFest this weekend, had a really good time. A lot of gays out there. Um, Fatboy Slim had on one of his songs. Let me see. Let me see if I can find it. He had. I'm trying to find it and hope that my phone doesn't decide to shut off. I can't really read it, but he had like, I think it said only love can conquer hate, and it was a big flag on the screen, a big like the pride flag. Um I know that that flag wasn't maybe like originally specifically LGBT. Like, I've heard that in Europe they fly it in places to represent peace and love and things like that. And I know, now when people see it, they just, at least out here, people just think LGBT. They think the pride flag. Um, I guess some little interesting uh things that I came across. Something that I came across that was kind of interesting. Like, people know that I follow uh finance information, so like some content creators like Caleb Hammer, and I watch Jack and Graham Stephan. I like the Iced Coffee Hour podcast and some of their other content. And something, I mean, I don't know, this isn't meant to put people on the spot or whatever, but um I don't even think they listen to this. It's not even a big deal, but um something interesting happened where a while back, Jack and Graham were joking or trying to get Jack to get more active in dating, and Jack was kind of getting involved. I mean, Graham was getting involved. Graham has been engaged for a long time, but Jack used to live with Graham, and now Jack has his own spot, and he's younger. He's like 24 now. I think Graham is like 32, and yeah, Jack is like 24, and so 32, 33. I don't know how old Graham is, but around there, almost towards his mid 30s ish. Um, and they started talking about, how they mentioned that people should slide into Jack's DMs. And they mentioned later on, this was like way after the fact, Jack kind of mentioned, like, hey, I got people sliding into my DMs, but it was mostly men. And I mean, he's not an LGBT guy, he's a cis straight dude. And, I mean, they weren't like, he wasn't like offended or anything, but I kind of just liked the way that he kind of handled it. But he was kind of like that. He was just like, that's just not my interest. And so I found it pretty interesting that he was like, oh, um, like that's not, you know, what he was interested in. Um, but when you think about that type of content, their um audience does tend to be a lot of males. And so it just makes sense that probably the majority of people that were hearing that to slide in were just shooting their shot. And like, since it's mostly males anyways, like the ones who were interested in a date sent the message. And they talked about that, where he was like, okay, like, just to clarify, like, that he wasn't looking for men. So it didn't really work out the way they had planned, because they were trying to set him up on a date. And then um hmm, I'm drinking water. I really need to hydrate. Hmm. So at one point, Caleb Hammer, he's a different finance guy, but him and Jack and Graham have been making quite a few pieces of content together because they've been on each other's channels. And so I think Jack went on Caleb's channel and did the financial audit. uh, Caleb audited Jack's finances. And then um, Caleb Hammer went on the Iced Coffee Hour, and they interviewed him about his startup, uh, his experience, like, becoming a content creator. And so, he talks a lot about dating on there. And the reason why I'm mentioning it is because, it's interesting just the language that people use when they talk about dating. Because I know when I talk about dating, a lot of times I'll leave the gender pronouns kind of vague, um, just because it's kind of easier to just refer to people as they a lot of the time. Um, but a lot of people that I do date, do identify as, they say they. And so, not that I've been like really dating lately, not really so much, but that's pretty common that I come across people who prefer they, them pronouns. Um, and I've known some people that, along the way of me kind of knowing them, their pronouns, they've uh, you know, spoken about, you know, they prefer different pronouns, like from when I met them. And so, that's something I try to pay attention to. But also, when people are talking about who they're dating, I do kind of pick up on when people use certain terminology, like I want a partner, or instead of saying like I want a husband or a wife, or saying something like, you know, when they talk about dating apps and they say they a lot, I'm not saying that it means someone's LGBT, but to me, I feel like most of the time when cis straight men are talking about who they're dating, if they're dating women, they usually say she or her. Um, but I noticed that one of these guys didn't really say that too much. Like Caleb Hammer was saying they a lot. They. Because that's not the first time he talked about dating. It's like the second time I've heard him talking about dating. And the first time he said they a lot, and I think at one point he might have said she when he was talking about the messages that she sent, maybe. And then this next time when I was watching yesterday, a different episode, he started saying, they a lot and saying he wants a partner and all these kind of things. So it kind of made me wonder, it sounds like he's dating women. He's, found women to kind of connect with, but maybe he has an interest more than that. Um, outside of just, cis straight women. And that's kind of, I mean, it's none of my business, but I'm just saying, like, when people use those pronouns, like, I feel like it's maybe sometimes people just accidentally talk like that, but I know I don't accidentally talk like that. It's usually purposeful, where I'm like, when I say they, there's like a reason. I'm either saying they because it's female and other people keep saying he, and I'm like, I just, after a while, I kind of just don't like correcting people and having to get into this whole like, oh, like you, whatever, like you didn't say he or she or whatever. Um, and so usually when I'll talk about somebody that I might have an interest in, I'll usually just say they, um, because I might not want to be just like, if I just say like she right away and then people get hung up on that, because maybe not everybody knows what's going on, and sometimes that just kind of just makes, like, for me it's a little stressful. um because it's like I don't know who I'm talking to in what setting. And usually I'm in public talking to people, like like I've explained, most of my friends don't have their own houses, so usually when we are hanging out, it's like outside of the house and in public. And so it's like I don't want to be talking about my gay life in the middle of some place where somebody's overhearing me, and that might be an issue. Sometimes I'm kind of like more concerned about the people around me, not the people I know, but like the people around me. Like, for example, on Sunday, I was hanging out in Old Town and, in San Diego, and like in the afternoon, I was over there, and we were hanging out within earshot of a lot of people. Like at one point, we were sitting in front of this coffee little shop called Rust, and then we moved from that seat to sit on the grass, and then we moved from the grass to sit out front of this cigar shop, and then from there we kind of moved a couple benches down because some lady decided to sit next to us and smoke in our faces, and so we moved over, and you know we were fine, sitting in another spot. But there were times where we were sitting, there was a guy who was kind of in a one of those walkers with the seats. He was sitting like not even 5 feet away in front of me. And so things like that, it's like you can be talking to somebody, but someone else is just sitting there and they might completely overhear you. So I didn't really want that. Um, I didn't really want someone to like be all up in my business overhearing, but I also, you know, like to kind of just talk freely. So it's kind of like, for me, I've kind of adopted saying they, just because I think my friends know what I mean. Um, and then, like usually when I first start talking about someone, I'll say they. Um, because sometimes, the pronoun stuff doesn't come up right away, or maybe it does. Usually, I mean, for me, usually it does come up right away, but I mean, sometimes it doesn't, so I don't really know. And I don't know, like, it's not like a big deal. I don't feel like any of this is like a huge deal. Like I don't have like a complaint. It's just kind of how I go about navigating things sometimes. Um but yeah, like I kind of keep my eye open towards other people's dating when they kind of mention things. Now one thing that I found interesting was, I mean, I talk with single friends about dating a lot, like not about dating each other, but about just the concept of dating in general. And we just kind of like talk about theories and stuff. And there is that kind of situation going on around about passport bros and like guys who are moving to other countries to find different kind of women. And with somebody, there was this conversation we were having about, does that happen in the LGBT world? And I was thinking about it and I was like, you know what? I've never heard of any women being like, American women are trash. I'm not into American women. Even though I'm American, I'm looking for a different kind of woman. So I'm going to go move to another country and find myself a traditional, you know, woman from the Philippines or whatever. Like I've never really heard a lot of LGBT females talking like that. It's mostly, it sounds like with the passport bro type of guys, it's the males, it's the cis straight males. I don't even know if this is the place to even talk about this, like, but that's why I kind of haven't been recording on here as much, is because a lot of the topics I'm kind of diving into don't quite fit so neatly um into this niche, especially on the LGBT end. But I would say anything that I take to try to apply to LGBT culture, I don't really see it. Like, say for example, people like Andrew Tate, I don't really see a lot of LGBT women agreeing with his stance on women and how he treats women. Um, I don't really see that too often. Um, and just like I said with like passport bros, I don't really think that there's any women that are like experiencing, not any women, but I don't see any trend of American LGBT women experiencing so much dissatisfaction with the women that they are with, so much to the point where they're um not able to actually um be with someone that's American. um Now I think in general most people have mentioned that dating is kind of weird because of the prices of things, because of just everyone being so busy. And I was even talking with an Uber driver about it, how he was saying like, you know I can't remember the number, but I said like, I think he said like it's hard to go out on a date and spend less than like, I think he said $80 or $100. I can't remember what he said, but he was like, yeah, it costs so much money. And I was like, yeah, I know it does, and like, so I could kind of see, if these gender norms, if these gender roles are kind of like, if people are really sticking to them so much, where it's like the guy is the one who's supposed to be paying for all this stuff all the time, I could kind of see how, of course, with the economy as it is, a lot of cis straight men probably are not interested in paying for all these women that they meet, um, or interested in the lifestyle of, women having these expectations. Um, I feel like I don't know, like in the LGBT world, at least in my experience, I'd say sometimes if someone's a little more masked, there might be somewhat of that assumption that that person might take on more of those masculine stereotypical roles of Western culture. And some people really like those roles and really will take them on. It doesn't really mean that they have to be like presenting and dressing like a mask look look to them. It could still be a very femme person that maybe they're maybe masculine at heart, you know. Um, but those are the things. It's like there's so many nuanced things that like you would not know that just by at first glance looking maybe at a masc and femme couple, um, LGBT female couple, looking at like an AFAB couple and being like, which one of them is going to pay? Are they going to split it? Like, what's going on here, you know? But I kind of want to talk more about these concepts, break them down a little bit more. This is just kind of general. I really don't know where I'm going with this, but it's just kind of a jumble of thoughts that's kind of in my mind. Um, so I'm gonna get more into it in some different episodes here and talk more to all of that. But with that, thanks for listening.